Welcome to the Pen Leader Podcast, where strategic leaders get straight to the topics, strengthening our awareness and sharpening our minds. The Pen Leader Podcast is produced by Roar, a production division of Mays & Associates Ltd. Find out more at www.maysassociatesltd.com. Now here is your award-winning host, Dr. Shanda Gore.
And welcome to the Pen Leader Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about community connections. And I have with me Mr. Scot A. Hinshaw, who is the 2025-2026 president of the Rotary of Toledo, which many of you may or may not know is in the top 20 in size in the world. He is also a partner of Shoemaker, Loop, and Kendrick, and has been in practice for more than 2 decades. Scott focuses on employment and labor law and commercial litigation, and his experience includes serving as a lead counsel in jury trials, injunction hearings, commercial arbitrations. He has litigated numerous cases throughout the United States. Scott has argued before the District of Columbia and the Sixth Circuit Federal Courts of Appeals, and has served as a head negotiator on behalf of employers across the table from the Service Employees International Union and the United Food and Commercial Workers. I mention this all because he has a day job and he's serving in this great role as our president. So without further ado, welcome, Scott.
Hello. Thank you, Dr. Gore. Appreciate it.
Yes. So as the new president, I know there's so much work to be done, in Rotary, and to be a leader in that area. It's a tremendous responsibility. But can you talk about your personal Rotary moment that has stayed with you and reminds you why you serve?
Sure. Yes. It's a super honor. It's a fantastic honor to be the president of this club. It's such a large club and a club that has such a great impact on our community. And I'll tell you kind of my most highest memory in my, that I can think of during my Rotary years is I joined around 2014. And one of the things that I learned about pretty early was this annual food pack that the Rotary did. And they packed food. They would basically put, whey protein and rice and some spices and a bunch of other things into a bag. They'd seal it right and then ship it off somewhere. I think like half of it went to needy communities nearby, and then half went, somewhere else internationally. But they did this food pack every year. And the year that I volunteered to do it, I was like, oh, maybe this is a way to get involved, because we're a networking club, but we're also a service organization, right? That's a big part of it. And so I went to the food pack, which was at this place called the Andersons compound, which here in Toledo, the Andersons is this huge agricultural company, and just the whole family is well known locally. And we went there and I did the food pack, and I couldn't believe it. It was just amazing to me that there were 100 people in this room, basically like an indoor gym, tables lined up end to end, right? 50 feet long. And all they were doing was packing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these meals, over a span of 4 hours. And by the time they were done, I think we had something like 40,000 meals packed, right?
Wow.
And it was just a Saturday afternoon. And you turn around and there's Fran Anderson, who's like the matriarch of this wonderful, family. And she's making sloppy joes for everybody. And it was just one of those places where you look around and you're like, this is where I want to be. Like, these are people I want to spend time with, and these are things that I want to be able to do and accomplish. And it really it drew me in for good in terms of the organization.
Well, you're talking about a level of engagement there. And I know your platform, when I heard you talk about being president and how important it was to not only have members, but to have them engaged. Can you talk about how that it has been very important and refer to a little bit more about that networking as part of that?
Yes, absolutely. And it's really important to me this year because of the growth of the club in the last couple of years. You've obviously been a very important part of that too, as our membership chair from last year when the club grew 100 people.
Yes.
It was insane. And so over the last couple of years, we've gained about 175 people for a 400 member club. And that's fantastic. But I think one of the things that came to my mind was, as a service organization, networking club, you also want to make sure that these people know what they're getting into, right? And know what the reason why they're there and everything else. So for me, it's making sure they connect with the club, they get engaged with the club, and that's the only way that we can make an impact, either on them or at least have them impact the community. And so that's kind of been like the push. That's the push I want to have this year, is engaging those folks, because you got to come into a club like this and you need to find your spot, right? And it could be anything, and I always talk about how, trying to help people find their spot. It might be a somebody who's in finance and they're a CPA by day, right? But they don't want to touch the finance committee, right? They want to go over to community service and help do projects and clean up the, parks and things like that. And that's great. I don't want to make an assumption about how somebody wants to be engaged. But I do want to give every member an opportunity to find their spot in the club and become as engaged in it as they possibly can. Networking is a big part of that. You know what I mean? That's part of why folks are there. And so I think, our club is great where people can make business connections and maybe that's all they want to do. And that's fine too. They enjoy their Monday lunch. They see a lot of business contacts and they get some work done. And then we have other members who like to do that, but also like to be able to serve the community and do a great job doing it.
I think you're inspiring members who may be listening right now. And it doesn't really matter. Again, we have individuals who are involved in Rotary internationally, or they maybe wherever their hometown is, but inspiring them to get involved. And the number one discussion point when I was membership chair was saying, I'm too busy. I'm just too busy. And so can you talk to what that means to you and too busy, because we're all very busy, what it means to recalibrate and think about it differently?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, there's so many of us that do that because we're all ingrained in our careers and we're all at a point in our careers. Most people who join Rotary are pretty significantly ingrained in their careers. And so that's kind of the focus of their life. But there's also a reason why they join Rotary, right? There's got to be that piece of the why. Something brought them to the club. And I know we don't do a great job overall of publicizing ourselves. But when we get members who come in, I think they know part of it is going to be that service aspect, that service characteristic. I mean, Rotary International has been around since 1905. And one of their early on projects that they've dedicated themselves is the eradication of polio, right? And now here we are years and decades later, and polio is limited now to about 2 different countries, right? And a handful of cases every year. And I think people join clubs like Rotary and Rotary specifically in order to help serve and have an impact like that for other people. But kind of like I was saying before, like you got to give them the opportunity to find what they enjoy. You got to give them the opportunity to find what they love. And I think if they find that thing, whether it's a social committee and they love book club or they love to bowl, or it's something more service oriented in the community, it's youth services or environmental issues, they're gonna find that. And I think that's where they're gonna try to carve out time from their busy schedules to be able to do it, is because that's what they're passionate about in addition to their career. So as long as you tell them what's around, right?
That's right. Got to communicate it.
That's right. We got to do our best to publicize it. And then once they know it's there, then I think they get involved, they find it. And those are the real long lasting members that we love to have.
I'm going to bring up this point because I have a number of leaders and they may not be in Rotary, but they're leading large organizations or even smaller organizations, but they have a workforce that's not engaged. I get a lot of that, especially when we're talking about business coaching and leaders looking to keep the great workforce they have. And you just mentioned it, Scott, how you are, again, you can bring members on, but how do you keep them engaged and how do you keep them interested? This is a critical component to successful leaders that I know and their organizations. So here's a question, because we do have this new demographic. We have a lot of new generations that are coming into Rotary. Can you speak to how you're keeping it fresh for the newer generation as well?
Yeah, I think what you have to do is you have to speak to what matters to them. And we've had different types of conferences that I've attended, at least, where they talk about these types of issues, like who are the new members of Rotary, right? You don't want a Rotary club that's the average age is 75 to 80, only because, well, those members are valuable and have helped build, right, the foundation of the club. We need the future. We need to continue to increase both the membership of the club, but also the vibrance of it. And so I think you have to go and find out what those people really are focused on. I think I went to a large conference at one point for Rotary International, and they talked about how the youth today are a little less interested in our programming, right? Our programming is, to us, one of our biggest issues. Like every Monday we get together for lunch and we have a speaker and we have a program and there's questions and there's a topic and people really enjoy hearing about something new. Well, apparently more of the newer members don't really think that that's important. Like they learn things through podcasts, right? And so
That's right. That's right.
They don't need to go to a lunch meeting to hear about something else. And what they really look for instead is service projects. Like they want to know what you're trying to accomplish. What are you trying to do in the community? How are they going to make an impact? So it's kind of great with some of the newer folks because you need to draw them in with how you're impacting the community. What are those metrics? What are you doing on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis to do service projects and to really engage them? I think that attracts them to the club. And I think the other thing that I think is important, especially as a leader of a club like that, is that you also engage them in leadership, right? You have to get them involved, and whether that's a vice chair position or a chair position in your committees, throw them into the fire once in a while, right? Just see how they react to it. And sometimes for some of them it can be scary because they're like, oh, this is a big club. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to run a meeting. What's Robert's rules? I don't even know what you're talking about. And at the same time, though, it gives them the ability to rise to the occasion
Mm-hmm.
and really show what they can do. And I think they end up appreciating it. They end up appreciating that leadership experience or first leadership experience too.
I would say and encourage anyone who's coming into a Rotary or any type of organization where you're trying to be encouraged to be involved, to test out your wings. Go to a couple of committee meetings, see if it's fit. When I really started, I had the opportunity to get more involved. I went to different committee meetings, and
Yes.
the one I started with was not the one I landed on, and it's also not the one I ended up chairing. I ended up in one that I'm like, you really want that? I really want to go do this. I want the challenge of this, and I think that allowing that space to do it for leaders, the most effective leaders, the ones that staying sharp, and we talk about that in Penn leadership, you want to be able to have good succession going too. And I think Rotary does a great job of thinking in the future, who's going to be next up? What's that going to look like? And allowing that leadership to select who can be best on their team to get the job and their platform done. And ultimately, I talk about these platforms, but they're all moving in the right direction together, rowing together. And I can't say how many times I've worked with presidents and vice presidents who start off rowing in one direction, but not everybody on the team is going in the same direction. So they're going in circles, literally going in circles. And it's very encouraging to see this opportunity to grow and to see that you can also take a position. And I want to emphasize that to my leaders out there that are listening. It's one of those components, especially as part of a strategic plan, you have to have. So I'm very encouraged to hear you do that.
Yeah, and to your point, we've found, especially through surveys of the club and what have you, that consistency is huge. Consistency in leadership or consistency in messaging, right? In order, like you said, to stay on that same path, to stay focused on things like a strategic plan or what have you. And it's not that it's not that you need the same leaders over and over and over again, right? But you need each one of those leaders to have a path that they're following, right? There's got to be some consistency where the membership feels like, okay, there's always the same message. I'm getting a consistent message that I can stand behind, understand, feel comfortable with, et cetera. And if it changes, that's fine. But all your leadership has to be on board that the message is changing, that you're going a different direction or something.
That's exactly right. So this brings me to technology and social media and how that might play in. I sometimes get these questions about AI and how that also helps connect members. But I was wondering what your thoughts are on, again, using the media channels and what you foresee, especially over the next 12 months while you're the president.
Sure. I think our biggest challenge in Rotary and just in general, even Rotary International, is promoting ourselves. We don't have enough information out there about what Rotary is, what Rotary does, what its goals are. And I think that, hurts us sometimes. It used to be when I joined the club, people talked about it being understated, right? That we weren't going to really promote ourselves because all we wanted to do was put a sign somewhere, a plaque somewhere that said, hey, Rotary helped, donate to this
And
or
I've seen those
complete.
plaques. I've seen them around.
Yeah, exactly. And that's all they do is they sit there. They don't really get, too much social media presence. So I think that's a problem. We've been, working to try to change that, right? Flip it on its head and be as public facing as we can. Because I don't want people to keep coming up to me and going, oh, what is Rotary anyway? You know what I mean? I'd rather have people coming up to me and go, I heard you're president of Rotary. I've seen what it can do. How do I join? Right. And that's really what we need to be able to get to. So we have a much more robust social media presence now than we did, say, 3 or 4 years ago. And we do it through all mediums. Like we're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram, we are hitting Facebook. Our programs that we have on Mondays are up on Facebook with promo reels within a day, maybe not even 24 hours. And that's great. That speaks a lot to our public media partner. Our social media partner. And so, but we got to keep doing that kind of stuff, right? We need to publicize ourselves and take credit for what we're doing because I think that's important to grow Rotary awareness and to grow the size and scope of clubs. So,
I agree. And I'd like to say, too, that what I love about Rotary and got me a couple of years ago really paying attention, not only the service project, but I love the fact that you highlight what your members are doing inside, that you're celebrating along with them. It gets to the point. I know that when I released my book earlier this year, I was celebrating with Rotary because there was a number of Rotarians who helped support, my book signings and coming out, and some of them in other states that came out when I traveled. And I thought to myself, it felt like a family. Everybody's rising. Everyone rises together. And I've celebrated others' achievements as well. So I love to know, what are my fellow Rotarians doing? If they're having success somewhere, I want to know. I want to hear about it. And I think you do a good job of that as well. I think sometimes that gets buried in some of the other organizations, but it takes time and just a quick focus. It's amazing. An attaboy, an attagirl, how it goes a long way. It's like people are celebrating with you. So really, Rotary does a great job of that.
I completely agree, and I think it's an important part of our club too. We think about it in terms of just making sure we're appreciative of our members and the singling out of individual members sometimes, even during a meeting or after an event or after a service project, it can go a long way because then those members feel better about their contribution. They feel, like you said, more part of the family and that they're getting stuff done and that people are recognizing it. So we try to do that as much as possible, not only at a meeting, but also in our social media presence too.
It's very great. So this brings me to the last question, which is, I think, one of the most fun, is what are you reading and what are you watching? You're the successful lawyer, your partner, and I hope it's not just cases.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I read a lot at work. That's my daughter always asks me, she's like, what do you do at work, Dad? I'm like, I read and write all day long. That's what I do. So, but yeah, like mine, I think mine is more about what I listen to. I listen to like true crime stuff. I think true crime is kind of enjoyable. My wife is a huge fan of The First 48, which is not a new show by any means, but there are so many seasons of The First 48. And she is just like, that's her like calming, which I think is the weirdest and funniest thing, is that's her calming, like, end of day. Now I can relax a little bit. Oh, let me turn on this show about murder, right? But it just gets me into it too. And I'm like, oh, this is fascinating. So I know it sounds weird. It's criminal law. So it's not like the stuff I do all day. So I feel a little better about it than that. So, yeah. I mean, back in the day, I used to, read the Tom Clancy's and, read like a kind of more of the legal type of stuff. But I kind of get away from that because that's what I do all day.
Well, so it's funny because I'm a lady after her heart because I do like my Murder, She Wrote, and that is not a new show by any chance.
I remember that show.
Yes, yes, I just enjoy. But wherever that lady went, wherever Jessica went, there was death that followed. So if you saw her come into your town, you're going to be a little worried.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, something bad was going to happen. Look out.
Something's going to happen. So.
It's kind of scary.
Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on and really talking about the power of Rotary and engagement and how important it is over in the holistic way of looking at an organization. So thank you so much, Scott.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, appreciate your time and thanks for being there to teach others about these types of opportunities.
Excellent. Well, and we want to thank our listeners and some of our viewers who are catching the show and sharing it. We appreciate your feedback and thoughts, and you can actually send us a note at info@mazeassociatesltd.com. We'd also like to thank Jennifer Panzishin, who is an Edward Jones financial advisor. She's fantastic. Thank you so much for your sponsorship. And, of course, until next time.
The Pen Leader podcast is hosted by Dr. Shanda Gore and brought to you by Maze & Associates Ltd, creating customized solutions for growth in the areas of leadership development, strategic planning, and culture building. Find out more at www.maceassociatesltd.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the Pen Leader podcast and share with others.